that. For one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom!
And welcome to Anti-Tyranny News Radio here on UCY.tv. Thank you for joining me this evening. We're going to, one thing we're going to start off with is this, the American Health Care Act, as they're calling it, to replace Obamacare. And we're going to dive into that. We're also going to get into a little bit about the WikiLeaks, Vault 7 dump, and we'll get into that too, along with a few other headline news stories that are trending right now. Excuse me. I have an article from Foundation for Economic Education covering this. Well, first off, that one will actually cover the repealing of Obamacare and what that really means. And then I have another one from Reason that actually covers the GOP's repeal plan that they want to replace Obamacare with. And we'll dive into both of those articles. I do want to start off with the today's Ron Paul Liberty Report. It's a Mythbusters, and he particularly covers the notion that you have a right to the health care. Well, you have a right to seek out health care. You have a right to, say, yes, I want to receive that, or no, I don't want to receive that. Yes, I'm willing to pay that. No, I won't pay that much. You have all those rights. But do you have a right for you to tell government to force someone to give you free health care or to perform something on you? That's the right he's talking about. Does government have the right to say that we can take out of one person's pocket to pay for this other person's health care? Because many people claim it's the right. Well, it's the right to seek out health care. But then if you want to look at that, well, many people look at cannabis as a alternative type, medicine or medicinal uses. And the federal government doesn't want to allow that. So if you're claiming a right to health, then what about alternative medications, alternative therapies? Why does it have to be the industrial field of pharmaceuticals and medicine? But let's go ahead and dive into this Ron Paul Liberty Report. We'll cover those couple articles and kind of cover a little bit more when it comes to what about alternative health, seeking out a naturalist. So let's go ahead and dive into this Ron Paul Liberty Report, and we'll get into those articles.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for the Liberty Report. This is Friday, and this is the day we do Mythbusters, and co-host is Chris Rossini. And I understand we might be talking about healthcare today. Chris, welcome to the program.
Hi, good morning, Dr. Paul. Yes, we're going to discuss government is once again stumbling through a health crisis of its own making. So we're going to cover a lot on that topic. We'll start with a major myth. And during this last presidential campaign, many people have been seduced by the idea that health care is actually a right. So please talk about that, Dr. Paul. Can one person have a right to another person's labor?
Well, you picked the first question to be the most important question, because I think from this assumption that everybody has a right to free medical care or some type of medical care is the reason that we've had a terrible medical delivery system for a good many years. It hasn't been just under Obamacare. It's gone back and it keeps creeping along. It was Obamacare just made things much worse. But it's based on the assumption that people have a right to medical care. But you don't have a right to any stuff, because if it comes from somebody, that you have to take it from somebody else. But no, most people think, well, if you have a right to medical care, the government will give it to me. And they never ask the question, where does government get it? Well, it's usually taken away from the middle class and the poor people through, future debt and future inflation and all the problems of unemployment that causes all this thing. But the basic assumption that you have a right to get something from somebody else means you have to endorse the concept of theft. So the strict interpretation of a right, and it's something that we get in a natural way, natural rights, they don't come from the government. If you assume that the government can provide this right to medical care, believe me, they then can take it away, then they can regulate it. Sort of like the minimum wage. If you endorse the concept, well, we want to regulate the minimum wage so we get it up. Well, sometimes they measure it in the other way. They won't allow the wages to go up. It's just interference in the assumption that rights are something different than they really are. We have a right to our life. We have a right to our liberty. And the other part that people have trouble understanding, and they don't want to make this assumption, is that you have to be responsible for taking care of yourself, because if you have a right to it, you don't have to worry about it. And they assume, well, there's somebody who has a lot more and the government can redistribute that. So it's very neat for the people who want something for free and not have to be responsible for it to say you have a right to it. But you don't have a right to somebody else's life. You have a right to your life, and only your life and the fruits of your labor. If you get something from somebody else, if you get it from your parents or friends or a church or in a voluntary way, that's a lot different than saying that it is a right that is going to be imposed on society by a government that's going to use force. Then you've drifted away from the concept of rights. And unfortunately, in the area of medicine, it's been assumed that you have a right to medical care, more so than other things. I mean, it affects almost all parts of our economy, but most people don't go around, they don't go into the car dealer and say, I have a right to a car, so just give me a car. But they do believe they have a right to go to an emergency room and get anything and everything that they need rather than being responsible. So I think it's this understanding of what rights are, that they are natural and they shouldn't be adjusted by taking the rights away from somebody else. You have a right to your life. You don't have a right to anybody else's life or the products of their labor, because that, once again, would put the whole principle of rights on its head, and it just doesn't work in a free society. That only works in an authoritarian society.
Yes, next, let's cover a road that we definitely don't want to take in this country. And the left for decades has been pushing for it. It didn't start with Obama and it didn't start with Hillary Clinton. We're going back, way back for decades for socialized healthcare in America. And so far, the American spirit has held it at bay. Please, Dr. Paul, talk about why we should never go down the road of completely socialized healthcare.
Well, if you care about the quality of healthcare, that would be one thing. You could suggest the idea that the Constitution has something to do with it, if anybody paid attention. And you're supposed to look to the Constitution for the explicit authority on what Congress can do and what government can do. And where most of that information comes is Article 1, Section 8. It doesn't anywhere say in the Constitution that people are obligated to provide free care to somebody else and reject the notion of rights when it comes to medical care. But if one does not understand the principle of personal rights, then it's natural to have a system develop into something called socialized medicine. And this is the whole effort. They don't say, let's have socialized medicine. Let's have a one-party payment. Let's make it fair. Everybody should pay the same and get the same quality care. And not only is this unconstitutional and it doesn't give good quality, it actually does a lot of harm. But if they apply that to other things, it would be almost bizarre, because most people in this country aren't accepting the idea that everything should be socialized. I agree, there are some, but basically they're not saying, well, that everybody has a right to a house and we should have a single payer, which means that, somebody who has a big house and somebody has a little house and they need some room, that you should be able to take that from them. We know that the person that needs room can't march into somebody's house, but then they assume that the government can do this. And that's what socialized medicine is all about. And I think that we've obviously have been moving in that direction, but we don't have socialized medicine, as bad as it is. With the amount of government we have, it still is radical interventionism. It's more corporatism than it is socialized. And it's just as bad because it's authoritarian. And eventually, if you don't stop it, it does move into a total socialized system. And that's what the argument is about right now, on whether the people were happy with corporatism and that they'll allow, now there's a mess, we'll march on to socialism. And right now, I think the majority of Americans say, no, we're not looking for that. But there's not too many who are saying that we should have market medicine. There's still this idea that delivering the service, medical services, can't be done in the free market. Well, if it's done in houses and cars and these sort of things, it's sort of like, like if you were getting cars by a single payer system and you had insurance to take care of it, who would assume that everybody's going to use a car equally and they could have all their services paid for? But this is what's happened in what we have today in this corporatism. But right now, the corporations rule the roost, and it makes people very, very angry. But then again, everybody suffers in the long run. I mean, the insurance companies didn't fight this. The drug companies didn't fight the system that we have. And we're marching along toward a socialized system where people have authoritarians in government that will redistribute it. And I think the lesson we should learn is it doesn't work very well. We shouldn't socialize medicine, but we should also assume that nothing should be socialized, and we should think about the concept of rights. And if that's the case, we wouldn't be going in this direction, because there's no evidence that shows that the distribution of either things like a house or a car or a telephone is better done by the government. And they say, well, the more important things like health care is so important that we have to have the government involved. But that's exactly the wrong kind of thinking, because the more scarce a resource is, the more you need to market to sort things out. So in times of war and different things, people say, well, this is a justification. We have to have wage and price controls and rationing and all these things. But there are scarcities, but scarcities should be sorted out by the marketplace. And there's no one service like medical service that should be turned over to the government and socialized, because people are going in the opposite direction. But this is a reflection of what our educational system has allowed to develop. that, yes, we can play on the sympathies and the needs of people. They need health care. But if they understood economic policy, they would say, how is the best way to deliver health care to the maximum number of people at the best price? And if you understood the market, you would say, keep the government out of it. But today, the mentality is that that's not possible. It's not being discussed right now. The issue of individual rights and personal liberties and the free market is not part of the debate, except for the very few, on what's going on in trying to adjust our medical care system now that most people are recognizing the failure of the current system that we have.
Yes, now, while we're fortunate not to have socialized medicine, as you point out, we have a big mess, and it has to do with government totally dominating medicine in partnership with big industries. We basically have crony care. So, Dr. Paul, please point out why this can't work in the long run.
Well, it can't work because it invites, lobbying. The lobbyists to go then want to get their fair share. So then you have the drug companies come in, you have the insurance companies come in, you have the medical associations, the AMA gets involved, everybody gets involved because it's not totally socialized, but it's really crony capitalism what it is, and it absorbs a lot of resources. If you look at what's happening is that a lot of money goes into medical care. But that doesn't mean there's better medical care. There was a study just recently done about the top earners in our economy right now, and about 6 out of the top 8 are involved in the medical care. And that doesn't mean they don't deserve a good living. Doctors deserve a good living and whatnot. But there's a lot of extra people involved. I mean, there are insurance providers, and there are people who deal with it in labs and things like this. So they pump money into it. It's sort of like when the government gets into the housing business and they pump money into houses, the prices go up and they overbuild houses, and then there's a crash. Well, in medicine, that's what they have done. There's a lot of profits. People get upset, and then there's a lot of bureaucracy involved, and this is where we are today, and they don't realize that crony capitalism is something that Mises talked about, and this is sort of a debasement of the capitalist and free market system. And Mises predicted that it would go toward more of a fascist state rather than just a socialist state. And this is what the arguments are all about, because there's this misunderstanding, once again, what rights are and how the market works. And right now we have a system that really invites people to be very, very competitive, and then you have to watch it. You have to watch prices. You have to price control. So now I'm not currently practicing medicine, but I have people in my family that are, and they say that no matter where they are, if they're on their cell phone or wherever, and they write a prescription or call a prescription in, it immediately appears on a federal computer, and they monitor health care on spending, on drugs, and everything is kept in there, and then you have the bureaucrats challenging the system. It used to be, especially when I started medicine, you had records, you did, and you kept them on a chart. And if a patient wanted them, you gave them to them. If they wanted to share it with the insurance company or anybody else, they took it. But today, it's instantaneously, everything is covered. And this is a consequence of the type of medicine we have today. And privacy, even though they pretend, the government's going to protect our privacy. No, it's like the same old story. They protect the government's right to come in and do anything that they want to find out how well you're practicing medicine and what your results are. And then that becomes bureaucratic. And believe me, the expenses that go into the hospitals and the labs and the doctor's office, just keeping records where they used to be able to do it with a couple people, they have to add a couple people just to keep the records in order to satisfy the government, and if not, you're in big trouble. So that's the type of system that we have, and a good practical reasons that people should reassess it.
Finally, Dr. Paul, let's talk about real solutions. They're almost completely ignored, as you pointed out. When it comes to healthcare, nobody wants to talk about it. It's called the free market. Now, you practice medicine at a time where the market was much, much freer than it is today. So please make the case that we need free market healthcare in America once again?
Well, there's no doubt in my mind, just on the principles of liberty, I would argue the case, and practicality, I would argue the case that if you want better services at a better price, you want the government out of it, because prices go up for one reason or a couple of reasons. One reason is that there's inflation. The government prints too much money, and it has to be spent. So although maybe your bread and eggs prices haven't gone up, but certain things do. You know, the price of houses can go up because the government has housing programs. But there's a lot of medical programs, so a lot of that money the government creates goes into the medical system, so there's a lot of price inflation. We have a lot of technological advances in medicine, but it doesn't lower the prices. You know, the prices should go down when you have technology, but and it happens in most things. You know, when we buy electronic gadgets, whether it's a cell phone or computers and all, prices generally go down, but not in medicine. They go up because there's a channeling of that money into that system. And then, of course, if you have government involvement, then they're going to put price controls on, and that will cause shortages. But we talk a lot about the current system and Obamacare and whatnot. But, you know, it's really rapidly advanced with government involvement since the 60s. And when I got out of medical school in the early 60s, there was no Medicare or Medicaid. And I worked in emergency rooms, and people never got turned away, and there were no people dying in the streets. There were a lot of charity hospitals, and it wasn't perfect, but it was a lot better than what happened now. It used to be that the lowest price was charged, but doctors would have to face their patient. The patient said, you know, I don't have $100 for this thing. He says, but I think I can do it for less. And maybe, and the doctor has to look the patient in the face and say, yeah, well, yeah, $50, we'll do it for $50. You always charge the least amount. Now you always charge the largest amount. But although in the 60s it advanced rapidly, you know, with Medicare and Medicaid and also prescription drug programs, the whole works just is constantly expanding, going in the wrong direction. But it started a long time before this, and a big thing happened during the progressive era. And there's some people that are aware of this, but to me it was a big thing in history, and that was the Flexner Report in 1910. And this was organized by the AMA in collaboration with the government, what was going to do. They were unhappy. The medical profession was unhappy because the people, it looked like the people might get medical care which wasn't top-notch. There were medical schools that were superior to other medical schools, but there were some that were inferior. Some of them only had 2 years, and some of them, you know, were attuned to having minorities, blacks and other minorities, and having them get to go to medical school. And then there were medical schools that were designed to help women. And then there were a lot of alternatives. There were choices in the market, you know, alternative care, more holistic and homeopathic medicine. And the doctors didn't like it. It was competition. So they came in and showed how horrible this was. So eventually, in cahoots with the government, they closed down these hospitals. And then later on, of course, they had to use affirmative action to make up for their mistakes. But the market was handling things and training doctors, and prices were low. But it continued to advance in that direction. But the other thing that the medical profession has done is use licensing, you know, to keep their monopoly. Medicine is a monopoly. You say, oh, wouldn't that be terrible if I hadn't had my lesson? How dangerous would it be? Well, somebody might have come in and say, did you go to medical school? Where did you go to medical school? And you have your diploma up. And licensing is to keep competition out. And right now, there's a lot of things. The FDA is non-competitive. They don't want drugs to come onto the market without, you know, controls on this. There'd be too many options. Alternative care is frowned upon. Nutrition is frowned upon. So it's this control that has happened. And you would eliminate all that. You want competition is what you want. Just think, people have to remember that there's a little bit of competition in medicine today, plastic surgeries and LASIK surgery for the eyes. And guess what? Over the years, the prices did this. Everything else does this. It goes up because of the regulations, all the things I talked about. But when there's competition is what you want. And you shouldn't be fearful of the fact that libertarians believe that licensing doesn't do much good. people know how to pick services, and the one restraint on a doctor going out and advertising, which governments do all the time, they advertise and interfere with advertising, is that you can't be fraudulent. You can't say, I have the magic cure. You take this and your cancer is going to go away. I mean, that's fraud, and people have to know what the risks are. They have to be told, and people ought to realize, you know, the whole system in the marketplace would be the rethinking about insurance. We do not have insurance. We have prepaid medical care. We have prepaid care, and that is a disaster. You want competitive insurance policies for major problems. And yet today, you know, it is not insurance. They should never use that insurance. It should be one-party interference in the medical system through the insurance. So there's a lot. People need to really study economic policy as well as the principles of individual liberty and personal rights. And believe me, medical care, you know, could improve dramatically. But if we keep moving with more government, let's just hope that the discussion going on today will move us in another direction where people have private choices and there's more competition. Competition drives prices down. Just look at, you know, like I mentioned, the electronic products. If it's truly a market, prices go down. There's competition. That's what we need. That means we need to restore an interest and a conviction that liberty works, and it will work in medicine, and it is needed very badly because the government has really messed up our medical care system. And Chris, I want to thank you for being with us today and bringing us this program.
Thank you very much, Dr. Paul.
And I want to thank our viewers today for joining us to this Liberty Report, and hopefully you'll be back soon.
Ron Paul Liberty Report, RonPaulLibertyReport.com, and Ron Paul Liberty Report on YouTube. Go check them out. Subscribe on YouTube. You know, when you look at when government gets involved in anything, they help inflate the prices. Part of it's through our monetary policy. And then the corporatism on top of it and bailing out. You know, one thing that me and others have talked about was the automotive industry. And like the housing bubble, partly because of the housing bubble and our monetary policy, the prices of cars became largely inflated. And when the housing bubble popped, I've heard others claim that there was that second bubble that didn't get popped. And that was the car industry, because later they got bailed out. And they pointed out that because they got bailed out, they really had no incentive to drop the prices of their vehicles down. And if you look at it now, a car, if you wanted to go buy, let's say your truck was beat up, you know, you've used it a lot, you know, you've had your hard times like everybody did during the Depression of '08. Many people struggled. The car industry struggled. The car industry got bailed out. The people didn't. So now the car prices are up there. Housing prices actually dropped down quite a bit. So now I'm seeing houses that at the height of it all, they were sitting around $125,000. Now they're now just getting up around, the 80,000 mark, 90,000 mark, depending on the house, the property, where it's located. Um, but they were down around 70. Well, that would be a heavy duty, fully, loaded pickup truck. So the car loans that are being pulled out for newer vehicles are as much as, one of those homes. And now, mind you, I'm in Indiana, so home prices are pretty low. For $500,000, you can get, 35, 50 acres with a, 4-acre, 5-acre pond on it with a, 6,000 square foot home. So there's pretty low prices here in Indiana when it comes to homes. But the car prices, they didn't drop. Well, with the healthcare mandating that you have insurance working as a middleman, there's multiple middlemen involved sucking up money. And the medical field can go, well, people are going to have to pay for it. And then, if we have to increase it, we'll have to do that. And you see premiums and everything going up. Why? Because you're mandated to have it. They'll charge you more money. The doctors will charge more money. What does that do for anyone? Inflates the price. There's people, if you're tuned in on the internet or your smartphone and you don't realize there's people out there that are off the grid, they probably have no idea about Obamacare or nothing. But if they got injured and someone found them, then they would have to go in. Then they would go in without insurance. Oh, you haven't paid taxes. The whole, book gets slammed at them because they've lived outside the system. Now you also have inflated prices. Oh, you had that small surgery? Oh, don't worry, that small surgery was only a couple million. No big deal. And if you look throughout history in countries that became very, dictatorial, and whether it be fascism, socialism, communism, debtor prisons become a real thing. In some form or fashion, debtor prisons become a real thing. And think about it right now. You'll have people that, have debt. Don't make much money. Might have not paid that debt. Tax season comes along. They get your IRS check if you have a tax return. If you're getting money back, they can take that tax return. Well, what happens when the IRS bails out anybody that says you have debt? And let's say, well, you don't get that much money back. Well, now, the IRS goes, well, then, you know what? We're going to pay them, and now you owe us. If you don't think a debtor prison, could it happen here? It could easily happen here. I want to get into this article, though. I'm going to cover this one first. This one out of Foundation for Economic Education. And this one's titled, Actually, Repealing Obamacare Wouldn't Kill Anyone. Sorry, get these little notification pop up out of my way. Okay. The best statistical estimate for the number of lives saved each year by the Affordable Care Act is 0. Certainly, there are individuals who have benefited from various of its provisions, but attempts to claim broader effects on public health or thousands of lives saved rely upon extrapolation from past studies that focus on the value of private health insurance. The ACA, however, has expanded coverage through Medicaid, a public program that, according to several studies, has failed to improve health outcomes for recipients. In fact, public health trends since the implementation of the ACA have worsened. With 80,000 more deaths in 2015 than had mortality continued declining during 2014 to 2015 at the rate achieved during 2000 to 2013. So in 1 year, our mortality rate declined in 1 year at the same rate it achieved in 13 years. Let me point out one thing too. Maybe when you guarantee someone, well, you got insurance now, you just go to the doctor, anything hurts you, or just go to the doctor, just have it taken care of. People might not watch their health as much as they used to when they go, I don't have insurance, I can't just eat whatever, I want. It's not like I get sick, I'll just go to the doctor, hand them in my insurance card. Not saying that's, how someone should look at it, but also not saying that's not how some people might. Says here, key finding, the Affordable Care Act has led to substantial increases in Medicaid enrollment, but shows no effect in the aggregate on private insurance coverage. A lower share of non-elderly Americans had private insurance in 2015 than at the start of the recession in 2007-2008. Economic recovery, not the ACA, has driven changes in private insurance coverage during 2007 to 2010. Total employment fell 5.5%, and private insurance coverage fell 7% during 2010 to 2015. Total employment rose 8.8%, and private insurance coverage rose 9.5%. The share of non-elderly Americans with private health insurance fell from 66.8% in 2007 to 65.6% in 2015. By contrast, the share of non-elderly Americans enrolled in public insurance, primarily Medicaid, has increased from 18.1% in 2007 to 25.3% in 2015, accounting for the entire reduction in the uninsured share of the population. Studies showing positive effects from health insurance coverage focus on private insurance, not Medicaid. In Oregon, researchers studied the effects of expanding Medicaid coverage and found no improvement in health outcomes. Numerous other studies support this finding for specific conditions and procedures, for Medicaid expansions, and for public health spending generally. Where studies do find that Medicaid has a positive effect, it is for pregnant women and young children, groups whose coverage was not expanded by the ACA. A statistical claim that the ACA says large number of lives should be supported by evidence that it has reduced mortality rates, yet the opposite occurred. In 2015, age-adjusted mortality rose and life expectancy declined in the United States for the first time since the early 1990s. Nor is it the case that states adopting the ACA's optional Medicaid expansion perform better than those rejecting it. To the contrary, mortality in 2015 rose more in Medicaid expansion states. Despite implementation of the ACA, there were 80,000 more deaths in 2015 than had mortality continued to decline during 2014 to 2015 at the same rate as during 2000 to 2013. And you can read the full report on that from the Manhattan Institute. You can find that one that I just read at Foundation for Economic Education, which is FEE.org, and it's titled Actually Repealing Obamacare Wouldn't Kill Anyone. And there's a lot of reasons. Whether it be the one I previously stated, that plays an effect. It's not, the whole, issue with it, but that does play part in it. But another thing is something we told wouldn't be in it, but we later find out it is. They just, give it a fancy title, and that's a death panel. Well, now government's, in control. People complain about, insurance companies not wanting to, well, hold on. You could choose not to get insurance or, switch at least within your state lines. Well, they didn't exactly want too bad of a name out there going, oh, we dropped a whole bunch of, cancer patients or whatever, It don't really look good for insurance companies' reputation. So, even though there were instances of that, it wasn't, all the time. Their insurance companies did, help out a lot of people too. I've known a few that the insurance companies luckily stuck by them. Again, I know that didn't happen for everyone. But, you could shop around, you had choices. And now it's, a lot of the insurance companies are gone. There's few choices. You still, don't have the being able to go between states with different insurance companies. At the same time, you're told you're required to have this. You have to go get it. And now government's in control, and well, oh, rates are too high. Oh, really? Rates are too high? We can fix that. Once, people get 75, 80 years old, certain procedures we're just not going to cover. If you get cancer at 80, 85 years old, absolutely no way we're going to help, pay to treat that, because your life expectancy doesn't justify spending that amount of money. And guess what? There's only one or two insurance companies, and both of them will say the same thing, and you have to pay for it. And there are panels set up to try to, account. Is your life worth this procedure? So, you know, you can you can make and justify making the argument that insurance companies kind of played that death panel thing to a point, but you can't argue that it's not in Obamacare. So mortality rates, yeah, I can believe that. Now I want to play a real short clip, and this was Rand Paul on Fox News talking about the new health care plan that the GOP put out. And if you heard already, Rand Paul was running around, the Capitol looking for this, secretive bill before it came out. And now it's out. We know what's in it. And, well, if you didn't like Obamacare, you definitely probably shouldn't rally for this. Let's go ahead and cue this clip up here, and we're going to play this. And then I have another article we'll go ahead and cover too.
All right, you heard from Health and Human Services Secretary Price that he thinks when all is said and done, despite the commotion, that the plan that the leadership of the Republican Party put out to repeal and revamp Obamacare will be the one that wins the day. I think my next guest might slightly disagree with that, Kentucky Republican Senator Rand Paul. Senator, he thinks it's that plan, not your plan. What do you say?
Well, I think we're pretty united on repeal, but we're pretty divided on replacement. About a year ago, we voted unanimously to repeal the whole thing, a clean repeal. I still think that's about all that will pass. On replacement, we're very, very divided. The Obamacare Light plan that's being put forward by the House leadership continues subsidies, continues Obamacare taxes, has a mandate, and has insurance bailout money in it. So, no, I don't think we're at all on the same page on that. But I think you could put forward repeal separate from replacement, and I think we could get something passed.
All right, you mentioned the taxes that continue at least through this year. Secretary Price was quite insistent that next year they go away.
Except for the Cadillac tax, which goes on forever.
Okay, so that's a big problem for you. The president seems to think he can win you over, Senator. We're quoting his tweet. I feel sure that my friend Rand Paul will come along with the new and great health care program because he knows Obamacare is a disaster. What do you say?
Well, I do agree with the president, and I talked to him this week. I agree that Obamacare is a disaster, and I agree that we should repeal it. And so I think that's where the unity is. And then, we're going to have a debate over replacement. But I don't think the conservatives in the House or the conservatives in the Senate want a new entitlement program, continued Cadillac tax. We're not for an insurance mandate. We complained for 6 years about the individual mandate, and the House, the Obamacare Light plan, instead of paying the mandate or the penalty to the government, you pay it to the insurance company. I think that's a distinction without a difference.
All right, you're talking about the one that after a couple of months, as you switch over, young people more to the point switch over to plan, they get a 30% penalty, right?
Yeah, and in fact, it actually might be a disincentive because let's say you've lost your job or you don't have enough money to be on insurance for a while, and you know that when you start it again, you have a 30% penalty, but you also know that you could start it again anytime you get sick. Boy, my goodness, as expensive as insurance is, most young people would say, 30%, I'm going to have to pay it sometime anyway. Why don't I wait until I get sick to pay that penalty?
Yeah, I think that's the problem in the plans as they stand, right? Now, you're a doctor of background, but I think young people, I've raised this so many guests, maybe even last time you were here, they feel indestructible, Senator. They feel that they don't need to do it. And all the incentives in the world, I dare say you could throw $20,000 in tax credits at them. I don't know if they'll go along. So how do you deal with that?
What they would go for is inexpensive insurance. And what you're finding is, I'm not so sure we're going to get inexpensive insurance. To get inexpensive insurance, you need a catastrophic policy. I'm not positive under the House plan you're going to be able to get a catastrophic policy. That really has to be high deductible, low premium policy. Right now, the biggest problems in the individual market, premiums are soaring and people are not participating that are healthy, and it's having this adverse selection where you have a lot of sick people and not too many healthy people.
And we have a high deductible environment as well, so you have the higher premiums and
exactly.
The high deductible. Yeah.
I'm not so sure that anything in the House plan changes that. My fear is that if you tell people you can buy insurance after you get sick, They will continue to do that. My fear is that under the House plan, Obamacare Light, that the situation continues to get worse. In fact, they admit as much because they put $100 billion in there to bail out the insurance companies. So the insurance companies don't have risk.
Where is that $100 billion coming from? I saw that as well. Where is this pool of money coming from?
That's a really good question, but I'm not really excited about bailing out the insurance companies and assuming their risk, having the taxpayer assume their risk. But the insurance companies are a little bit disingenuous. They come to Washington acting like they're the best patriots in the world, and they want to help everybody, and they want guaranteed issue, but they want guaranteed issue only if the taxpayer pays for it. So, no, I mean, they're disingenuous in this, but the House plan ends up insuring the insurance companies against loss, and I don't think that's what the federal government ought to be doing.
All right. The key similarities in both plans as they stand now, and I'd like to be with each one of these, whether you agree or they should be the same. Do you think there should be coverage for pre-existing conditions?
I think what ought to happen is we ought to try to have let people join a healthcare association with a lot of people, and that would be a group plan, and then they would get protection against pre-existing conditions. I think if you just simply mandate it in the individual market and you take away the individual mandate and you have this insurance mandate,
okay,
it won't be enough. And I think the insurance companies will continue to spiral down. Premiums will continue to spiral up.
I'm sorry to gun through this, but what about lifting the lifetime cap on coverage? You agree with that?
I think that if we get people in group insurance, you have the leverage to get all of the things you desire in the terms of the insurance.
All right. Both of the plans presently tax generous employer plans. Would you?
No, I think if you can negotiate a good insurance plan, why would we want to punish you? So this comes from this top-down sort of a government knows best. The government doesn't think you should have a really good or expensive plan, so government's going to tax that. I'm completely against that entire notion that government knows best ever.
We're hearing the president might be visiting your state, Louisville, more to the point, this weekend. Do you know anything about that?
I've heard the rumors, and we welcome him. He's very popular in our state. And
he might be pressuring you.
Well, I'm a big supporter of what he's done in deregulating our coal industry. I've been promoting that here for years. We're lucky to have him as president. With regard to deregulation, he's for lowering taxes, so am I. And we're hoping we find common ground. And I think the common ground on Obamacare is that we're both for repealing it.
All right. Senator, thank you for taking the time. Senator Rand Paul.
Thank you.
The fallout.
And again, that was Rand Paul, Senator Rand Paul on Fox News. Now, he was calling it Obamacare Light. I have this article here from Reason.com I want to cover. And this one's the GOP repeal plan sucks, but it's better than nothing? Question mark. Not necessarily, it says. First of all, the preferred free market plan for a healthcare policy should be no plan whatsoever. The idea that we need a federal top-down strategy to manage a huge chunk of the economy is at the very heart of the problem. We don't need a federal plan for healthcare, yet Republicans have allowed liberals to frame the entire health insurance debate in these anti-market terms. So the American Health Care Act, or AHCA, is obviously weak tea, falling far short of a promised free market solution. And remember when Romney was running the previous election cycle, and what happened when he came out about let's repeal and replace Obamacare? What happened with the Tea Partiers? They were going and replace. Hold on, and replace. But now, you know, many Republicans have no problem. There was a lot of Tea Partiers just because Trump's like, let's get this through, you know. He's not saying we can't change it. He just wants to get a plan passed. Well, it's still saying, hey, let's replace it. And this is far from repealing Obamacare. It's just changing Obamacare and calling it something different. Obamacare Light, as Rand Paul put it. It said it's falling short of a promised free market solution, much less a full repeal of Obamacare. It's a half measure that endeavors to fix Obamacare with small doses of deregulation while failing to repeal its core. It's almost as if Republicans were trying to mollify their constituents and save Obamacare at the same time. President Donald Trump tweeted something about three-phase rollout, but the specifics of the other two parts have yet to be confirmed. Perhaps the full proposal will reflect better on Republicans, but considering the noise moderate senators have been making and Trump's own views on entitlement programs, it's unlikely to meet conservative expectations. So what can be done? In a piece highly critical of the plan, the Washington Examiner, Philip Klein, who has done some of the most insightful writing on Obamacare, states that the GOP will either be passing legislation that rests on the same philosophical premise as Obamacare, or will pass nothing at all and thus keep Obamacare itself in place. What if this is a choice? We know the Democratic Party's plan for health care constrain markets to create monopolies that can be controlled by a federal regulatory regime. This is why liberals oppose markets expanding across state lines. And rather than worrying about access, choice, or cost, continue to incentivize the growth of the welfare state. When this situation becomes untenable, past single payer, what Democrats understand. Why I always get these stupid pop-ups? Sorry. Sorry, guys. Okay. It says here, this is why liberals oppose markets expand across state lines, and rather than worrying about access, choice, or cost, continue to incentivize the growth of the welfare state. When this situation becomes untenable past single payer, what Democrats understand but Republicans often don't is that you can reach your goals incrementally. Obamacare was ignored as soon as it was passed. A law that was sold as a tool to rein in rising costs quickly became a moral edifice that elevated an imaginary humanitarian crisis. The defense of it is now almost exclusively focused on people losing Medicaid. Meanwhile, Obamacare was used as a tool for social engineering and coercion, allowing technocrats to dictate how a third of the economy functions. If you control the bureaucracy, laws become incredibly malleable. One day, Democrats will be back, and without even partial repeal, all the same mechanisms will be available to them. So the question remains, is something better than nothing? Halting federal funding of the nation's largest abortion mill is a victory. Offering states more flexibility to run their own Medicaid programs is a victory. Expanded health savings accounts and the creation of real-life illustrations of successes is promising. Getting rid of the individual mandate is a victory, as is allowing consumers to purchase insurance across state lines. Repealing nearly all of Obamacare's taxes, other than a postponement on the Cadillac tax, is a win. It's possible, of course, that the AHCA negotiations will begin with moderate proposals and transform into something free market oriented. With widespread opposition from conservative groups, Heritage Action for America, Freedom Works, etc., the American Health Care Act looks like a non starter. Then again, who are we kidding? The truth is that conservatives probably find themselves in the same situation frustrated liberals did in 2009. Despite prevailing mythology, Democrats never compromised in good faith with the opposing party. They compromised with their own moderates. It only takes a few senators to hold an entire party hostage. It's also worth pointing out that no federal entitlement program has ever been repealed or replaced or really even weakened. This was a fight that spurred Republicans to win hundreds of seats and take the House, Senate, and presidency. The fact is that many politicians who benefited most from Obamacare's failures were lying to their constituents. Either these Republicans don't have the mettle to back a full repeal, or they don't have the ideas to create a new plan. So perhaps Obamacare Light is preferable to Obamacare because it's the best crop of legislators is going to do. The best this crop of legislators is going to do. Also, as history has shown, making substantive policy changes doesn't get any easier as a term wears on. This might be the last chance to do anything. Another infuriating aspect of this fiasco is that Democrats will treat any Obamacare repeal bill as if it were an assault on all that is holy and patriotic. This rhetoric shouldn't have inhibited Republicans. It should have freed them to pass bills that incorporate the ideas they supposedly believe in. Why would they let the same people who told America that Obamacare would be a political and functional success now lecture them on how unpopular a repeal bill will be? It's just one of the many mysteries of the GOP. Again, that was at reason.com. The GOP repeal plan sucks, but it's better than nothing, ? And now, I think that's what's going to happen is it's going to have to be basically continue to be rewritten and amendments put in before it would reach anything that could pass. And we'll get to that point. Will those concessions be made that will please people like Rand Paul or, Ted Cruz or any of them? I think Rand Paul would be one of the harder ones to please. And I think that he's going to hold a little bit different standard than other ones. But the thing is Trump wants a success. He is going to push extremely hard to get this passed. And is he going to have enough sway to get the GOP, the Paul Ryan, get the McConnells and, get the elite establishment GOP to make those concessions and go along with it? It's hard to tell. It really depends on what type of sway Trump will have in DC. And if he can truly say, you can play the lobbyist game, then we do nothing. And really where it sits right now, the GOP is at a lose-lose. They have to know that. If they pass Obamacare light, they're going to be responsible for the same mess that Obamacare caused, basically, because it is Obamacare light. So they pass it as is, and now they're responsible. They lose elections. They don't pass it at all, and they might lose elections because they failed to do anything like, what was promised. The only win I see is that they make those concessions that the people actually want and then pass it. That's the only way the GOP wins. Unless they're willing to sacrifice to try to get rid of, wouldn't the establishment GOP like to make Trump look like a liar? I will repeal Obamacare. Well, guess what? If you're not willing to take Obamacare light, then guess what? You don't get to repeal it. Could he play that game? And I think that's a real possibility. So, we'll keep up with this as much as possible to see where this goes, if it goes anywhere, and see how the media, mainstream media, will play this out. Give me a second here. I'm going to play two clips back to back. The first one is going to be, give me a second, sorry, a little issue here. The first one's going to be what you need to know about the Vault 7 WikiLeaks release. And the next one will be the top 5 underreported scariest facts about the Vault 7 WikiLeaks release. So, we'll get into that. Just let me pull this up here. Luckily, I did save them back somewhere. I just gotta get to them. Okay, so I'm having a little bit of a issue here all of a sudden. We'll get it taken care of, though. Don't worry about that.
The last call.
Woo. I want to click on that. I don't know what's going on here. We will get this taken care of, sorry. Okay, I think we're getting it out here. Okay, now we are getting it figured out. Just having a little bit of issue. Okay, here we go. We'll go ahead and skip this ad here.
What just happened moments ago could be best described as a cyber electronic 9/11. The world will change because of WikiLeaks and their Vault 7 releases. All the theories, all the speculations, everything that we have been warning you about for the past 10 years has come true, and nothing is safe. Moments ago, WikiLeaks published the entire hacking capabilities of the CIA. They had to do this an hour earlier because they were under attack and had to cancel their press conference. But the information coming out so far gives weight to the assassination of Michael Hastings. It reveals how the CIA could spy on you through your TV and could bypass mobile encryption apps. As we're speaking right now, my news team is on top and reading all the documents coming out from the Vault 7 releases. And if you want more up-to-date information, go to wearechange.org for all the articles on this important topic. But it's important to note here that the CIA has lost control of this hacking arsenal that they had, which included malware, viruses, trojans, weaponized zero-day exploits, malware remote control system, and associated documents, which amounts to several 100 million lines of code that the CIA lost control of and is now being circulated among former U.S. government hackers and contractors in an authorized manner, to the point of where one of these hackers became the new Edward Snowden and released the documents to WikiLeaks. And according to this hacker, this source of this information, he wants this information out there publicly debated amongst the people, since the CIA capabilities are now loose and out there, which could put the public in danger. So what the CIA did here was they pretty much effectively created their own NSA with less accountability and without anyone knowing about it, which brings true the theories that we were talking about before of how the CIA and the NSA were in a turf war over the power to know everything that everyone is doing in any moment. And that's exactly the tools that the CIA had that are now being circulated amongst unauthorized users. They had zero-day weaponized exploits. And if people don't know what zero-day weaponized exploits are, it's software from specific programs like Microsoft that Microsoft doesn't know has a huge gaping hole in it that anyone could come into and use as an exploit. The CIA knew of all these exploits, hoarded them with major companies like Apple, Google, Microsoft, and even Samsung TVs, which effectively they could use to know everything that a person is doing at any moment in time. And instead of letting those companies know that there's a vulnerability in their software, they kept it to themselves, even though they were mandated to let the companies know, hey, your users' information is vulnerable. It could be stolen. It could be used for malicious reasons. Really bad things could be done because of this hole in your software. But no, they didn't. They weren't accountable. They weren't acting on behalf of the American people and protecting them. They were using these tools, hoarding them in order to exploit them for their own political purposes. Now, it's also interesting to see that WikiLeaks actually redacted information from this latest leak, which included some of the tens of thousands CIA targets and attack machines throughout Latin America, Europe, and the United States that they use. Now, these documents are still coming out. My team is reading through every last one of them, and to support our work, please go to wearechange.org/donate, because we have a whole staff of editors, writers, and researchers and investigators making sure that you get the information as fast as you can with the reliable source information for you to verify yourself. Support real journalism. Support us on wearechange.org/donate, and stay tuned, because this is only the beginning of this massive leak that just came out and broke right now.
You need a website. Why not do it yourself? With Wix, you can create your own professional website. Choose from hundreds of templates. Whether you're a small business owner or an artist, we've got something for you.
It's not just about the spying, stupid. The story of the Vault 7 WikiLeaks release is a lot more serious, a lot more dangerous, and a lot more concerning when you actually get into the nitty-gritty and look at the most extreme examples of government overreach, or as I would call it, just the insane level of powers that the CIA has granted themselves. And in this video, we're going to go over the most concerning aspects that are not just surrounding spying of this issue. Now, the mainstream media has been downplaying this issue, especially with the deep state shills like Michael Hayden, the former director of the NSA and CIA, who went on the Colbert Report show yesterday and said the CIA does not spy on you through your televisions, which is an absolute lie. By the way, I confronted this same treacherous liar all the way back in 2011, hounding him on how he was spying on everyone, and this is the only thing he had to say.
AT&T and T-Mobile, they have their own floors. I'm not done, sir, because I want, freedom and privacy. And you made sure that we don't have any. I mean, how can you say we have privacy when it's used against us?
Again, watch the full video, but even since early on 2013, I've been telling you guys,
virtually everything you do online, there's a way for the NSA to find out. There is no total security. There is no privacy on the internet.
Now, this was common sense to me, and we're seeing this Vault 7 story being just centered around the spying aspects, which are important because we're learning how encryption apps like WhatsApp, Signal don't really matter since the CIA was able to hack directly into the operating systems of Android's iOS and Microsoft and are able to get information before it's even encrypted. We learned how Skype voice conversations are converted into text in real time, scanned, and then stored in a CIA cloud. But still, even on that issue, we're seeing CNN shill and say that this Vault 7 release reveals nothing terribly new, that the CIA hack is like saying water is wet. So the criminal corporate conglomerate crap news network, that is CNN, is obviously shilling for their Operation Mockingbird bosses. No surprise there. And the initial reaction by our federal government is to look into and investigate who leaked the documents and not hold the CIA accountable for their criminal actions, which is also insane. It seems like Germany is the only one taking this very seriously and may actually prosecute U.S. officials for hacking in their consulate in Frankfurt, Germany. But again, this is not just a hacking story. It's beyond that. The hacking tools that the CIA had were let loose, were lost. So that means any foreign government, any criminal organization, any corporate group, any hacker right now could use these tools that are now being shared amongst individuals outside of the CIA and use them against anyone he wants, including you. So yes, we learned that the CIA spying operations are a lot more powerful than the NSA's with lack of oversight. Them losing the hacking tools and their capabilities and not holding themselves accountable and not warning people is not just negligence, it's criminal. And that's the first thing that people are missing in this story. The second aspect of the story that people are missing is that Barack Obama empowered the CIA to do this, not only with a big budget, but also just allowing them to do whatever they wanted. The leaked charts in the Vault 7 documents show the CIA directly above the U.S. president. And with the powers that they have, no wonder Barack Obama allowed them to do what they wanted without any accountability, because they were above him and more powerful than him. That's the second part of the story. The third part of the story is that the CIA had tools in order to remotely hack chips inside of cars, trucks, planes, and medical devices, which could be used for potential assassination. Assassinations that would look like accidents, including plane crashes, car crashes, which makes many people speculate about the very mysterious deaths of many prominent figures who have been taken out that weren't directly investigating the CIA, including investigative journalist Michael Hastings that died in a very mysterious car crash, and also RFK Jr., Paul Wellstone, and the list goes on. And it's sad that this issue has become bipartisan, because imagine if Michael Hastings was a Russian journalist, how the media and the Democrats and the liberals would respond to this new information that just came to light. The fourth aspect of the story that not many people are picking up is that the CIA had the capabilities to mimic hacking protocols of the Russians in order to obscure their own hack, which means they had the potential to make false flag hacking attacks look like they were Russian in order to blame them for what they originally did, which puts into question the whole Russian hysteria story that we've been hearing on the mainstream media for the past 6 months. Which brings me to the fifth and last final point of this major story. It's not who Barack Obama spied on, it's who didn't he spy on under his administration and the unlimited power that he gave to the CIA. Now, this story should be taken very seriously, so please share this with your friends and family members, because this is the same agency that we're learning about right now that has politically assassinated world leaders, that has been caught drug trafficking in our own country. And now we're learning is above the U.S. president. This story is of key importance, and this is only the beginning, as WikiLeaks tweeted out today that it has only released 1% of the Vault 7 series in part 1 of its publication. We're going to be covering this story very closely here on youtube.com/wearechange, so subscribe and stay tuned, and don't forget to support us with your dollar. To keep media free and independent, you have to support us, or else we wouldn't exist. Stay tuned. We're going to have a lot more on this and more stories here on wearechange.org.
We Are Change on YouTube, wearechange.org. Subscribe to him on YouTube. And the press release that WikiLeaks put out in their analysis, it says CIA malware targets iPhone, Android, smart TVs. CIA malware and hacking tools are built by Engineering Development Group, a software development group within CCI, Center for Cyber Intelligence, a department belonging to CIA's DDI. Basically, you read through this, and it just, it's everything the conspiracy, what, you know, we're all called conspiracy theorists when all this comes out. And what you find out is, you know, like many things, the conspiracy theorists get quite a bit right. There's a lot of stuff that, when your phone can spy on you, I personally don't have smart TVs. Someone's like, oh, you could go down and get a smart TV for that price. I'm like, I don't do smart TV. Why? Because you can't sit in your living room and watch TV in privacy with one? Huh? They can spy on you. Oh, that's stupid. Whatever. Okay, whatever. I'm not having a smart TV in my house. I have one machine that has a webcam that is blacked out. Most of my stuff I try not to run with anything built in, all external. No, you know, I don't like doing built-in mics and all that with anything that's connected to the internet. So anything that I do have, I can completely disable from the internet. So I don't like to feel my privacy is, you know, interrupted. And the one thing I do have that doesn't quite disconnect, cell phone. But we do kind of give up some of our freedom, don't we? Even the best of us that try to fight for the best freedom, you know, I own a cell phone, a smartphone. It's got a camera. It's, you know, of course, it's got a mic. It's a phone. Unlike a landline, it can be listening into me right now, where a landline, I would at least have to pick it up. They can watch you, listen to you. Most cell phones have facial recognition. If you have one of those Xbox Kinetics hooked up, facial recognition, can watch what's going on. Same with smart TVs. I don't think you're going to convince me that, yeah, we got access to this stuff, but we don't We don't use it. Not only government, but hackers. Maybe people that want to blackmail rich Americans. Hey, we have a video of what you did in your living room the other day. If you want it to go away, you know the scams that are already out where they tell you go get one of those green dot cards and, what was it? Oh, pop-ups that try to make it look like you have you're locked out of your computer. Go get a green dot. They got viruses and pop-ups that do that. They could do that with blackmail from things like that. So it's not just government, it's hackers. When, we have these people doing smart homes and all this, you have to understand, for this type of technology to continue to advance, it has to be free. When I say free, not the technology itself being free, but the ability for people to freely use the internet and computers and software and coding, which means there will be hackers, and then government will try to find their way in. So having a smart home, probably not the best idea. Smart TVs, probably not the best idea if you want any privacy. Now, if you just don't care, they go, we seen what you did in your living room. We'll share it if you don't pay us. Share it, I don't care. Well, that's your choice. And I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that would be like, share it. I want it to go viral. So, yeah, you kind of play a dangerous game with that type of technology. Sorry, I'll lose you here again. Browser crashed again on my main machine here. Okay. Now we got back up here. Okay. Now, all of this information comes out, and we literally have mainstream media kind of playing like, oh, there's nothing there. We even have a lot of, libertarian, no one wants to touch it. No one wants to talk about it. It's really amazing. And there's all kinds of reports about Twitter not allowing hashtags, Facebook not allowing articles to be posted from multiple websites if it has anything about Vault 7 in it. Oh, and I had this one from, of course, it's going to be lopsided just when I tell you where it's from, Chicago Tribune. And it was a commentary, WikiLeaks, CIA dump looks like a dud for now. It says here, WikiLeaks' latest data dump, the Vault 7, purporting to reveal the CIA's hacking tools appears to be something of a dud. If you didn't know before that spy agencies could apply these tools and techniques, you're naive and you think it undermines the attribution of hacker attacks on the DNC and other targets. You'll be disappointed. On the surface, the dump touted by WikiLeaks as the biggest ever publication of confidential CIA documents offers some explosive revelations. They're all over the news pages. The CIA is able to use your Samsung Smart TV to eavesdrop on you. The CIA can get into your iPhone or Android device, as well as your Windows, Mac, or Linux PC, and harvest your communications before they are encrypted. No encryption app, not even the Edward Snowden favorite Signal or WhatsApp, which uses the same encryption, is safe. The CIA hoards zero-day vulnerabilities, weaknesses not known to the software's vendors. Instead of revealing them to the likes of Google, Apple, and Microsoft, CIA hackers use obfuscation tools to pretend its malware was made by someone else, including Russian intelligence. What? CIA hackers use obfuscation tools to pretend its malware was made by someone else, including Russian intelligence. Oh, so you mean it might have been the CIA that could have been hacking the DNC? There's even a BuzzFeed story quoting current and former U.S. intelligence officers that the dump is worse than Snowden's. There's little content to the dump to support these panicky reactions. Nothing in it indicates that the CIA has broken messenger encryption. As Open Whisper Systems, the software organization responsible for Signal, has been quick to point out, the CIA can read messenger communications only if it plants malware on a specific phone or computer. Then it can harvest keystrokes and take screenshots. This is not about mass surveillance, something that should bother the vast majority of internet users. But about monitoring specific targets, Open Whisper Systems tweeted on March 7th, ubiquitous E2E encryption is pushing intelligence agencies from undetectable mass surveillance to expensive high-risk targeted attacks. Well, the problem... Oh, here, let me finish this here. It's not much of a secret that using a hacked phone or computer renders end-to-end encryption useless. It was the essence of Apple's dispute with the Federal Bureau or FBI last year when the company wouldn't help the FBI get into a phone owned by San Bernardino shooter Saeed Farouk. But remember, hold on. There was the AT&T with the secret rooms and floors dedicated to. Do you need to hack the phone then to access it? Well, if you know Apple phone, if they can track it. Okay. Well, we'll just believe this article that, unless they grabbed your phone and installed that. No, that's what, the everyday person can do. There's, stuff out there. You get a hold of someone's phone, You can put a secret app on it that they can't tell's there, and you can, yeah, that's been around. We've known about that. That is not what the dump is. That is not what this is about. This is them trying to, you know, underplay this. And there's going to be the skeptics out there that, well, don't trust the government, but that sounds about right. No, because you don't understand that that technology that they're talking about has been out for a very long time. Yes, we know this. That's not what this dump is talking about. This can be linked towards, you know, the prison program. This, along with the Snowden stuff, is what, you know, starts painting the full picture. And from what I've heard, we haven't seen everything yet. There'll be more. Okay, give me a second here. Just give me a quick second, guys. I wanted to play a short one here from Stefan Malin and cover what he talks about, what makes him upset about the Vault 7 release. So we'll go ahead and play this and I'll cover it.
Hope you're doing well. Hope you're enjoying your newfound visibility to the powers that be today. WikiLeaks dropped their Vault 7 release, perhaps their most important release to date. It's confirmation of what most people knew about the government's capacity for surveillance, that they can enlist an electronic army of nearby devices to listen and record video and do whatever they want to capture whatever they want. Apparently, the only thing they can't do is hack your hamster to read your mind, but I'm sure that's coming soon. Basically reminding us that the Fourth Amendment has been turned into toilet paper for fascists. This is an example to me. I did a video like almost 10 years ago on how the internet was the greatest revolution in human communications since the printing press, since the invention of the printing press. The free market produces all of these wonderful things to allow us to share ideas and arguments and evidence and perspectives and unite the world in the potential arena of reason and evidence. Massive forward thrusting of our capacity to be civilized. We have all of this provided to us by the free market. And then the goodies which are produced by the free market are enlisted by the state to be turned against us. The technology that is invented to serve us turns into a big brother who controls and chills us and potentially compromises us fundamentally. And this question of compromise is really, really important. When you see people out there in the public sphere, who can you trust? Who has been compromised? Who has stuff on who? Right? How do you know that the information being presented to you comes from an honest place or comes from a place where people have been compromised by government information about their private activities? Hell, Obama himself could have been hacked. Obama knew about all of this. I have no doubt. Come on, liberals. Really? Are you going to keep defending him if he knew about all of this stuff and kept it quiet? Because this is the cycle. that we live in, and it needs to be broken. The cycle that we live in is this. The government taxes you in order to go and destabilize foreign governments and start wars and create massive amounts of conflict, resentment, hatred, and murderous intent around the world. Then, you see, the government takes money from you in order to resettle people from countries that they've attacked in your neighborhood. Then the government says, well, you know, it's kind of weird, but there's a lot of people around who seem to want to do America harm, both domestically and overseas. So now we're going to need to take a lot of money from you to develop massive amounts of hacking tools in order to spy upon everything that you do. Because you see, we're all about just keeping you safe. That is the cycle. Does anyone out there really think that this is a good idea? Does anyone out there think that this net catches a lot of bad guys or gives the government control and chills conversation among good guys? Is there anyone out there who really supports this, who really thinks this is a great idea? I mean, outside the alphabet soup of agencies playing with literally the power of the gods and playing with surveillance techniques and mechanisms that the NKVD and the Stasi could only have dreamed about. In 1984, there's a screen that listens and watches what you do. It may have come a little later than anticipated, but its powers are almost infinitely greater than imagined. And that is an important thing to remember. Is there anyone you would trust with this power? Whenever you think that the government can do something good with the powers that it has, imagine that your worst enemy has those powers to be used against you. Because sooner or later, unless we push back, that will be the situation we find ourselves in.
Now, a lot of us that we knew a lot of this was going on. We knew that, you know, smart TVs, again, we were the conspiracy theorists. And now that it's come out, you know, of course, a lot of them, again, don't want to put it out there, don't want to talk about it. Why, I'm not sure. Still not sure. Anymore, it seems society has come numb to it. And I've seen a couple times where now you find people that if you tell them something, they go, well, you know, it's probably true. What are you going to do about it? They don't care. And something that did kind of get me is there's videos coming out now. There's one original one that really went viral, and there's some other ones coming out now, where whether it be Alexa or Google, I think it was Alexa. Yeah, Alexa. Alexa, you know, asks the question, Alexa, you know, would you lie to me? And, you know, I wouldn't intentionally lie. I try to tell you the truth. Alexa, you know, what is the CIA? I think it was. And then it's a, you know, Central Intelligence Agency. And then it asks, what was it exactly? I think, are you connected to the CIA? And it refused to answer anything. Not, you know, I don't understand the question, or I can't answer that at this time. It just will not answer. Answer anything else, but will not answer that. Kind of makes you think, makes you wonder. Now, you know, the one thing that I have also seen that it gives me hope for the future, even though, these things are confirmed, is that we also have people that are just as smart creating new and, innovative ways to try to, give you your privacy back. And with how, the FBI had to deal with unlocking that one iPhone, which I still call a little BS on that. But still, Apple's like, yeah, we're not, going to, do what you want us to do. Give you that key, give you that backdoor access. Because the iPhones have a level of encryption. Now, yeah, you can, break that encryption, but it was something that they weren't dealing with as much. Now, I'm real interested to see how far they've taken this. Is it similar to the NSA collection, metadata collection? You know, are they collecting, does your keywords set off your smart TV or, detect your communications, activate your cell phone camera? Is there a catalog of information and metadata or whatever that they're collecting and just holding on you, just, in case we decide to suspect you of something? Okay, give me a second. And of course, it don't want to pop up. Try this one more time here. Internet's really been slow. We had some storms last Wednesday. That's why I couldn't be live with you. Power went out. Came back on right before the broadcast, but it was flickering pretty rapidly. So, no use trying to run on battery power with no actual sustained electricity. We probably wouldn't have made it. Very, very high winds. Oh, we are coming to the end of broadcast. Maybe I can get to this, maybe not. Okay, this from Reason.com. I'm going to cover it just real quick. Missouri's public defenders are so overwhelmed, it's a constitutional crisis. A new ACLU lawsuit against Missouri is just the latest to expose how poor defendants across the country are effectively denied the right to attorney. Missouri resident Shondell Church sat in jail for 42 days after being arrested for felony theft in 2016 before he saw a court-appointed attorney. Church had a winnable case, the attorney told him, but there was a problem. It would be 6 months before the public defender had time to go to trial. After spending 3 more months in jail and looking down the barrel of 3 more without a job or a way to support his family, Church pled guilty to a misdemeanor charge in a federal class action civil rights lawsuit filed Thursday. The American Civil Liberties Union says cases like Church's are disturbingly common in Missouri, where the public defender system is so underfunded and overburdened that it has created a constitutional crisis in the state. In jail, you're starving on what they give you and you're dying to get out. Church, the lead plaintiff in the ACLU lawsuit, said in a statement Thursday, I was hoping things would move faster, but those 129 days cost me a whole lot. I had lost all that time working, and I finally had to give up and plead guilty just to get out and help my family. As the Miranda rights spiel says, you have the right to attorney, and if you cannot afford an attorney, one will be provided for you. The Supreme Court established a Sixth Amendment right to attorney for indigent defendants in the 1963 landmark case, Gideon versus Wainwright. But across the country, civil rights groups say poor defendants often languish in jail without legal representation, and that harried public defenders barely have time to review cases before going to trial. A similar class action lawsuit was filed in Louisiana last month, where civil rights groups say public defenders' offices are so underfunded that last year 33 out of 42 of them could not take on new cases or had to place clients on waiting lists. The ACLU is pursuing similar litigation in Utah, California, and Idaho. You can read the rest of that at reason.com. Missouri public defenders are so overwhelmed it's a constitutional crisis. And yeah, underfunded too. That, and they kind of rely on stuff like that, don't they? They rely on you going, I just want out of here. Cool, plead guilty. Go in the system, get tagged, you become cattle. And a lot of people also have seen the court system. Everybody always wants to blame, always a person that might have done something wrong. But you also don't understand a lot of the systems after they get out are kind of set up not always to help them. A lot of times they want to keep them under the system. Job security. Think about it. And I've seen it firsthand that, there are people that are like, let's keep them in the system. So there's very little forgiveness, and we also see it in after people get out and how they're treated with their record. You got to understand there's a lot of people in there for nonviolent crimes and doing things that a lot of you do. A lot of these people come from poor neighborhoods, A lot of them get caught up in this stuff at a young age. Some of them might not have parents there. Some of them might not feel they have a choice. And they do become criminals because we keep telling them they are. One of the big problems is the war on drugs. You know, I don't want people shooting up heroin, doing crack, and all that stuff either. But we don't try to fix the problem. We just make criminals out of more people and more people. And again, we don't fix the problem. We just keep putting them through the system. Where does that money come from? Our pocket. Taxpayer money, or money that, you know, they borrowed from China. They are not here to solve a problem. They're here to either make a dollar, spend a dollar, or just lie and make you feel like they're trying to do good. And a lot of times they do nothing but make more of a profit off of people and cage people up like they're animals for not hurting someone. And some of these people get caged up longer than those that hurt someone. So, you know, and the drug war is also proven to be racist. Because, again, they target poverty areas, and when, you know, they go to and target the ghetto, you know, that's highly trafficked by law enforcement. A lot of undercovers, you know, they pull out all the tactics just to keep busting people left and right. You don't ever see anything change. If anything, if they bust too much, then you have more violence break out, because then you have people struggling to try to continue to do it, and then they get violent to protect their territory and their, you know, cash or drugs and themselves. So it doesn't improve the situation, it makes it more violent. And there's real criminals out there getting rich off of it. And a lot of the people struggling are getting caught up in the system. And whether it's the drug abuser, the little guy on the totem pole when it comes to dealing, they don't benefit from going through the system. And there's a lot more factors behind all of it. Thank you all for tuning in. Stay tuned here on UCY.tv. Don't forget to go to UCY.tv. Scroll down to the bottom. Click the Amazon button. Shop Amazon through UCY.tv. Get the same great deals, same great prices and shipping rates. And at the same time, UCY gets a little kickback, helps cover operating costs on their end. And don't forget to visit antityrannynews.com/metal, Amagi Metals. Check them out. And same with, like Amazon, you get the same great deals, same great shipping rates, and we get a little kickback on our side to cover our operating costs. Again, stay tuned.
My name is S.M. Gibson, and I am the host of Anti-Media Radio on UCY.